Okay, so financial goals are rarely achieved in the short term. Reaching your goals, such as buying your first home, saving up for your daughter's wedding, or having a successful retirement, will require a long term discipline strategy. You should begin with the basics of budgeting, debt reduction, and savings. You should also develop a budget that you can not only live with, but stick with over a long period of time. You should be flexible in creating your budget, but willing to prioritize the items that will protect you and your financial future. Part of your budget should encompass a plan to pay down your debt, as well as how to handle emergencies without relying on credit. And once you have decided on a plan for these items, you'll be ready to take advantage of the savings benefits offered by your employer's retirement plan, as well as the other protection and benefits that they may offer. And this will include not just health and life insurance, but short term and long term disability as well. So some people may not like the word budget. It can feel restrictive and carry a negative connotation. I prefer to think of a budget as a spending plan. So developing a spending plan is the first step towards reaching your financial goals. If you are not able to discern where your money is going and how it is being spent, then you can't exercise control over it. And some people are okay with living on a budget, and some people hate it. Please keep in mind that a good spending plan doesn't have to be overly rigid. You should structure your budget to be flexible and be sure to include spending for entertainment and the things that make life fun and worth living. You should also plan on revisiting your budget once a year. As your income changes, you should make sure that you're still saving enough to meet your goals and pay down your debt. It's not quite as hard as it sounds, but one steadfast rule remains. You will never be able to build real wealth unless you spend less than you make. So financial markets will go up and down, and you can't control that. But the one thing you can control is how much you save and how much you spend. So when developing your spending plan, the first thing you should do is separate your needs from your wants. The needs are what it will take to live day to day, and this will include items such as food and rent, and these may be variable or a fixed cost. And this will also include mandatory obligations such as taxes. So please do not make the mistake of redefining the word need to include Starbucks or the newest most expensive iPhone. And after defining your needs, next decide what to spend on your wants. This should be an amount for entertainment and possibly a short-term savings goal such as a summer beach trip. Another mistake to avoid would be taking up the remainder of your budget with wants after your needs have been met. You should have discretionary funds left over. This is what you will use to pay down your debt and save up for your long-term financial goals. So now that you know how much discretionary income you'll have left over each month, the next step is to establish an emergency reserve fund. And this is really just a big hunk of cash equal to about 3 to 6 months of your living expenses, or in other words, your needs. So you should establish this cash position first in case something unexpected happens, such as losing your job, not being able to work because you broke your arm and leg snowboarding, or a large car repair bill. And this fund will help prevent you from relying on credit. And getting too deep into debt is unfortunately a very common occurrence in these situations. So before you start any other type of savings or debt repayment, get this knocked out first. So there are a lot of good things about credit, and you should have access to it, but the dangers of digging yourself a hole are pretty significant. If you have the discipline to stay within your budget, you can use credit wisely to build your credit history for the future financing of large purchases. But if you are not disciplined, and you really have to know yourself and your spending habits here, then for goodness sakes, stay away from credit or only get small credit lines. So millennials are the most educated generation to date, with 4 out of 10 holding a college degree. The result of this, combined with burgeoning college costs, have resulted in this age group carrying more student loan debt than all other previous generations. For Gen Xers and older, mortgages and car loans usually contribute the most to the household debt, but all generations can be affected by credit card debt. And having an emergency fund will help you avoid making your debt grow, but you also need to develop a plan to pay it down. You should begin by planning on paying more than just the minimum payment. A portion of your discretionary income should go towards this objective. You target the loan with the highest interest rate first for the extra payment. Once this has been liquidated, move on to the next highest rate until all your debt has been paid off. Focus on the highest interest rate, not the highest balance first. And using this strategy, you can save yourself a substantial amount in interest payments over time. But please note it is important to save for your long-term goals as well. So do not plan on using all of your discretionary income towards debt reduction alone. Most federal student loans have a grace period after graduation until payments begin. This is intended to give you some time to gain employment before the obligation is due. Repayment on PLUS loan must begin within 60 days after the final disbursement. Stafford loans have a 6-month grace period, and Perkins loans have a 9-month period. So each loan only has one grace period, so you go back to school after using it, you will not be awarded a second. And these periods can be extended for up to 3 years if the borrower is active duty military. Please note that you may lose the grace period benefit if you consolidate your loans. But this consolidation loan can simplify your federal loans under one monthly bill and interest rate. However, it's not always advisable to do this. Because consolidation usually increases the term of your loans, you pay more interest over time if you only pay the minimum rate. And you may also lose borrower benefits such as discounts and rebates. Please note this is not the same as refinancing. This is done through a private institution and should result in a lower interest rate, but you will lose access to the income-driven repayment plans or the ability to defer. So loan payments can be deferred after the grace period if you are enrolled at least part-time in grad school, or they can be deferred for up to 3 years for unemployment or other economic hardship. It is important to remember that under deferment, government will pay the interest on your loans if they are subsidized. But if they are unsubsidized loans, you are responsible for the interest payments and they accrue during this period. So the income-based repayment plans are determined by government calculation of your discretionary income. Generally speaking, your income must be quite low to qualify for these types of plans. If you do qualify, your monthly payment may be lowered and or your loan balance forgiven after making payments for an extended period of time. Public service loan forgiveness can be an excellent way to have your loan debt greatly reduced if you meet the criteria. Your loans must be direct loans only. The organization you are employed with must be a government entity, a public service, or a 501c3 organization. You may be able to have your remaining loan debt forgiven after making payments for 10 years toward an eligible income-based plan. So under a graduated plan, repayment is usually over a 10-year period with the amount of the monthly payment stepped up every 2 years until the balance is paid in full. This can be a useful repayment option if you expect your income to increase relatively rapidly over the next 10 years. So refinancing to a private loan provider can be a useful method to lower your interest rate and reduce your monthly payments. But like mentioned before, you will lose the other repayment options available for federal loans. So it's important to weigh the costs and benefits before making such a decision. You can please visit the government student loan website for more information on these repayment and forgiveness plans and to see if you are eligible. And that website is studentaid.ed.gov/SA. Okay, and thanks again for listening to the first portion of the half portion of the webinar. I would like to introduce my colleague, Christy White, and she will be covering employer benefits and how they relate. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin. Like you said, I'm Christy White. I'm one of the financial planners here at EBW. I will be continuing the presentation with employer retirement plans and other employer benefits. So we've talked about the importance of saving and how starting early can mean the difference between success and failure. So now we'll focus on how to save and what options you have. Employers today offer a lot of benefits to their employees for a variety of reasons: to be competitive, to attract the best people, and because the government incents them to do so. One of the most popular of these benefits are retirement plans. Depending on where you work, these retirement plans may have different names. They may be called 401ks if you work in the corporate world, 403b for the not-for-profit world, and a thrift savings plan if you work for the federal government. For all intents and purposes, these plans work very much the same, despite their different names. Some of your employers may also make a Roth option available. We'll talk more about these in a minute. So, employer retirement plans. What's the big deal? Most of these plans have some important things in common. Let's review the good and the bad. First, the good. You can invest your money before Uncle Sam taxes you on it, except in the case of Roth, where your contributions go in after tax. Your money has the potential to grow, and if you play by the rules, you won't pay taxes while it grows. It's automatic in that once it's set up, you don't even have to think about it. Each paycheck, your money goes right into your account and you don't see it, so you don't really miss it. Mentally, you adjust to living on less. You'll typically have some standard investment options. Many of your employers will offer what is called a match. And this means that if you save money for your retirement, your employer will also contribute money to your account. And you may be able to make Roth contributions, where the money goes in after tax and grows tax-free. As for the bad, you can't touch this money before you turn 59 and a half, or Uncle Sam will slap you with a big penalty. There are certain exceptions that apply, but they're not common. Your distributions will be taxed the same as the money you earn, which is usually your highest tax rate, rather than the lower rates at which other types of investment accounts may be taxed. For this year, you can put up to $18,500 into a 401k for 2018, and for 2019, they just raised the limit up to $19,000. So I mentioned before that saving your money before you get taxed on is a good thing. Let's see why. If you make $50,000, and let's say that 25% of your income goes to taxes, you end up paying around $12,500 in income taxes, and you'll bring home about $37,500, give or take. But if you contribute $6,000 of your retirement plan, you contribute $6,000 to your retirement plan pre-tax, then your taxable income will be $44,000 instead of $50,000, and you'll pay $11,000 in taxes. Your take-home pay would be $33,000. So if you saved $6,000 towards your retirement, but you only reduced your take-home pay by $4,500, not bad, right? And if your employer offers a match, you'll have saved even more. Now, this next example is an example of how tax-deferred growth actually works. So it shows that you are saving $250 a month for 30 years into an account earning 10%. In the left column, you're paying taxes each year, so Uncle Sam takes 25% of your growth in the form of taxes, and you get to keep 75% of your return for an after-tax rate of return of 7.5%. At the end of the 30 years, you'll owe no taxes since you've already paid them, and you get to keep the entire balance. Now, on the right column, you save the same $250 a month for the same 30 years, and since the money is growing tax deferred, you don't have to pay taxes. So you keep the 100% of the growth or the full 10% of your money earned. But when you withdraw the money in retirement, you will have to pay taxes. And as I said earlier, it would be at your highest rate. So while the balance of your account is $570,000, it's not all yours, right? Uncle Sam owns part. After paying the same 25% in taxes, you would be left with about $427,000. So after all this number crunching is done, you would have a little over $88,000 or more in the tax-deferred account than in the taxable account. This is because along the way, you were earning compounding interest on the money you would have paid in taxes. It's pretty great. So we also talked about employer matches. What's that? Many employers offer this as a benefit because they get a tax deduction for their contributions. In this example, you contribute $6,000 to your retirement, and the employer is matching 100% of the first 3% of your contribution and 50% of the next 2. So if you contribute 5, they will contribute another 4% for you. It's like free money. In this example, you made a 33% return on your money almost immediately. So while employer plans are nice, they aren't the only way to save for your future. There are also individual retirement accounts, or IRAs. There are 2 types of IRAs that we'll be discussing today, traditional and Roth. The traditional IRA is a lot like your 401k or 403b in that you may be able to invest pre-tax money. This, of course, is subject to income limitations. But your money will potentially grow tax deferred. When you withdraw it in retirement, you'll be taxed just like the money that you earned, and that's at your highest marginal tax rate. On the other hand, there is the Roth IRA. The main difference being that your contributions are never tax deductible, but they grow tax-free. This is a subtle but important distinction, tax deferred versus tax-free. Tax deferred, as we said earlier, means that you'll pay no taxes while the money is growing, but you'll pay when you withdraw. Tax-free means that you never pay taxes, ever, as long as you follow the rules. So you can get 40 years or more of tax-free growth potential and not pay any taxes on it. Again, there are income limitations to this, but they're much higher than the limits to pre-tax IRA deductions. Whether to choose to make pre-tax or Roth contributions or both to your retirement plan or IRA will depend on your current income and financial situation. For 2018, you can contribute a max of $5,500 to a traditional or a Roth IRA. This limit increases to $6,000 a year in 2019. So let's move on to employee benefits. I'm just going to do a brief overview of some of the employee benefits that you're likely to see and highlight some important features. So we're going to look at health insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, and some other retirement plans. In terms of health insurance, I'm not going to go over all the different types of options you're likely to have at work, but I wanted to point out some benefits of having an HSA coupled with your high deductible health plan. You may be eligible to contribute to a health savings account or HSA if you are enrolled in a high deductible health plan, ADHP, at some point in the contribution year. If you are healthy and generally have a few medical expenses, you may want to consider signing up for an ADHP and an HSA. The benefit of this combination is that you can make contributions to the HSA that are pre-tax and come out tax-free if used for qualified medical expenses. The contributions can also be invested and have the potential to grow significantly if not spent in the near term. The contributions can also be used to offset long-term care premiums in the future. For 2018, individuals can contribute $3,450 to an HSA if they have a minimum deductible of $1,350 on their ADHP, and families can contribute up to $6,900 with a minimum deductible of $2,700. There's also a catch-up contribution of $1,000 for individuals 55 and older. For 2019, these limits increased to $3,500 for individuals and $7,000 for families. Okay, life insurance. So your employer may offer life insurance. Life insurance pays money to someone in the event that you kick the bucket. This may not be important in your lives right now if there isn't anyone who depends on you for their own livelihood, such as a spouse or a child. If there is someone whose life would be financially impacted by your death, then you need life insurance. If not, then you probably don't need a lot of it. Your employer may offer some level of basic coverage to you at no cost. This might be something like 1 year's salary. Of course, you'll take this, but you may not need to purchase any more on your own until you have others who depend on you. While we're on the fun subject of being dead, you should also get some basic estate planning done. A will, power of attorney, and a living will are probably all you need. You can try one of those online providers like LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer if your situation is fairly uncomplicated and you need inexpensive legal services. Once you get married, have kids, or make a fortune, you should see a real live lawyer to get this done. Disability insurance. So disability insurance, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, we got a weird echo. Disability insurance provides you with an income stream if for health reasons you can't work. If you look at our screen, it says that according to the Social Security Administration, just over 1 in 4 of today's 20-year-olds will become disabled before they retire. As of December of 2016, there were over 8.8 million disabled workers receiving Social Security disability benefits. The statistics are pretty overwhelming, and with health issues being the #1 reason that people file for bankruptcy, this is important stuff. You may be able to get coverage through your employer. If you pay the premiums yourself with after-tax dollars, any benefits you receive from the policy will be tax-free. If your employer pays your premiums, or you do so with before-tax dollars, your benefits will be taxed. This also often comes in 2 versions. You have short-term disability, which usually replaces income for the first 6 to 12 months of your disability. And there's also long-term disability that typically pays until you're age 65. Depending on your employer, you may be offered one or both of these options. There are also other retirement plans that might be available through your employer. One is a pension plan. Pension plans are very uncommon these days, as most employers have gone to the other types of retirement plans we discussed earlier. Some exceptions to this are the federal government and some state and local employees like teachers. Basically, you get a check every month for the same amount regardless of what's going on in the economy. Where your investments may move up and down, your pension check will be fairly constant. I say fairly because you may get cost of living increases, another great benefit available to federal and some local government employees. Your benefit is a function of your salary, not of how much you save or how well your investments do. Your employer or potential employer offers this. It's a very attractive benefit and should be weighed in your decision. The maximum benefit occurs if you work for this employer for a long time. There are some other less common plans, like deferred compensation plans or 457s. They allow you to make additional tax-deferred savings contributions on top of your 401k contributions. These are typically designed to benefit highly compensated employees. Your employer may offer a simple IRA or a STEP IRA instead of a 403b or a 401k, but these are uncommon as the cost of maintaining 401k plans has gone down in recent years. If you work in the private sector, your company may issue stock and allow you to purchase shares at a reduced price. These options can get fairly complicated, and you need to pay attention to purchase and exercise dates and keep track of your cost basis. If you have any specific questions regarding these plans, we can discuss them in more detail outside of the webinar. We will now be opening up the floor to questions from the audience. You can either use the raise hand icon on your screen, or you can email your questions to info@ebwllc.com. Okay, I have our first question. It says, can I contribute to a 401k and a Roth IRA if my employer does not have a 401k Roth? Most likely. It really depends on your income more than anything else. The income threshold, I don't remember the exact number, but it's around 130,000 for individuals. So you can contribute to your 401k and then you can do the Roth IRA outside of the 401k. There's no limitations to that. Oh, thank you. So the income limit exactly. Okay. Yeah, it's not on here. Okay, so for a single individual, you can contribute to a Roth if you make less than 135,000, and you may be able to make some sort of Roth contribution if your income is in between 120,000 and 135,000. For married filing jointly, the range is between 189,000 and 199,000. Our second question is, how does an HSA work and can it be invested? Um, Again, it depends, but for the HSA, you typically have to set it up through your employer, and then you make contributions from your paycheck. And there are certain HSA providers that allow you to link your HSA to an investment account, and you can have the proceeds that you put in invested in an asset allocation strategy, or however you like. Okay. Next question is going to go.
Hello. So if you've recently started a job and you can no longer defer your student loans, well, the next step is then to develop your budget. And then part of that budget, your minimum loan payment will be a need. And then you may be able to pay a little extra on that. It might be hard initially when you first start your job, but you need to budget for your needs, being that minimum loan payment. Absolutely. So you don't want, and you could defer if you had an economic hardship or a situation like that, but you're not going to be able to qualify for such a deferment if you are employed. So please develop your budget, and then please put that into your as one of your needs. And then we also have another question here. What is the tax penalty for an early withdrawal from an IRA? So if you take an early withdrawal from an IRA, that would be a withdrawal taken that is not a qualified hardship distribution before age 59 and a half. And not just ordinary income taxes would be paid on that, so both federal and state taxes, but you'd also have to pay a 10% excise tax on top of that. So if you did have to do that, it would almost surely wipe out the returns on the account.
Okay, we're just still waiting for questions.
Okay, so we're still waiting on a few more questions. If you have any, please shoot them over to us. Okay, and I would also like to point out one thing as well. We do have a question about Roth contributions. So one good thing about making Roth contributions is because they're made with initially with dollars that are already taxed. So because of that, you can take your contributions out tax-free from a Roth IRA if they've been there for 5 years. And if you meet that requirement, then you can take the contributions out without penalty before age 59 and a half. So that's an important difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA, and a good benefit to having one is that if you should have an emergency reserve fund, but if for some reason that's not sufficient enough, you can access contributions from a Roth IRA as well. Not the growth, but the contributions. No. Okay. Okay, but I'd like to thank everyone for participating today in the webinar, and I hope you had a great day, and don't drive in the snow. Thank you.